Okay, let's dive into today's explainer and explore a fascinating geographical mystery. We often ask why certain local governments fall prey to corruption while others remain resilient. It's a puzzle that has challenged social scientists for decades, and today we're going to look at a structural answer derived from the physical map itself. Think about the layout of a country. You might have one town that seems perpetually trapped in cycles of graft and misallocated funds, while a neighboring town, just a few miles down the highway, manages to function with relative transparency and efficiency. For a long time, the explanations for this have focused heavily on who's in charge or the broader cultural norms. Today, we're looking at a different angle.
When we examine misbehavior in local politics, the default is to zoom in on the individuals. We often assume it's a micro-level issue, maybe a rational choice made by an official acting out of greed, or perhaps a lack of proper administrative training. Or we might just chalk it up to broad cultural traits embedded in a specific society, suggesting that some places just have a history of looking the other way. But what happens if we step back from those micro-level assumptions? What if the root of the problem is grounded in the very earth beneath the municipality? If we only focus on the individuals holding office, we might be missing the invisible structural forces that shape their environment and their choices.
And that brings us to the core premise of the research we're examining today, conducted by Daniel Zizumbo Colunga and Maria del Pilar Fuertes Celis. They propose that geography is an overlooked influence on municipal corruption. Their research suggests that the physical territory itself creates incentives that draw in political, economic, and criminal actors, encouraging them to capture local institutions. Consider a local mayor whose jurisdiction includes a major international border crossing versus a mayor of an isolated rural farming community. The geographic positioning of that first town naturally attracts large-scale logistics companies, massive flows of capital, and, inevitably, illicit networks looking to move contraband. The geography dictates the pressure placed on the local government.
Section 1. The geography of corruption.
To understand how the physical environment interacts with misbehavior, the researchers introduce a concept called geographic utility. Basically, this is defined as the intrinsic value of a municipality, derived from its specific combination of natural and strategic resources. By looking at geographic utility, we move beyond simple institutional theories. Instead, we view the municipality as a valuable territorial asset. The more valuable the asset, the stronger the incentive for actors to capture it. If a town sits on rich veins of copper or acts as the only viable pass through a mountain range, it holds high geographic utility. The local government is the entity that ultimately zones, regulates, and polices that asset, making the government itself a highly sought-after prize.
The geographical characteristics of a space fuel different pressures that converge on local institutions. Picture the dynamic as a set of opposing forces. On one hand, you have actors who want access to these resources. This creates a bottom-up pressure. A multinational corporation or a local syndicate might offer bribes to local officials to secure logging permits or bypass environmental regulations. They're pushing upward to access the utility of the land. On the other hand, the officials who already control that highly valuable space recognize its worth. This creates a top-down pressure. Knowing that businesses must use their port or pass through their jurisdiction, these officials might engage in extortion or aggressive rent-seeking, demanding a cut of the profits just to allow normal operations to proceed.
Section 2. Natural versus strategic utility.
To properly measure geographic utility, the researchers separate it into two distinct categories. First, we have natural resources. These are the physical commodities of the earth, things like minerals, vast forests, abundant freshwater reservoirs, and fossil fuels. These are assets you can physically extract and sell. Then we have strategic resources. These aren't about what you can dig out of the ground, but rather the infrastructural and geopolitical advantages of a location. This includes major highways, deep-water ports, international border crossings, and major tourist corridors. A town might not have a single drop of oil or an ounce of silver, but if it serves as the primary logistical hub connecting two major economies, its strategic utility is immense.
You can think of strategic utility as a kind of toll booth incentive. If a municipality sits on a major migration route, a critical shipping port, or a lucrative tourist hub, controlling that local government allows actors to extract rent from commerce and movement. They sit at the choke point and demand a price of entry. This matters deeply to the everyday citizen living in these areas. If illicit networks or compromised officials are running a municipal toll booth, it affects the cost of goods, the safety of the roadways, and the overall quality of civic life. The local police force might be redirected from protecting neighborhoods to guarding logistical routes for cartels, fundamentally altering the day-to-day reality for the people who call that municipality home.
Section 3. Mapping the corrupt shadow. To turn these abstract concepts into literal data points on a map, the researchers focused on municipalities in Mexico, which allows them to keep broader national institutions and cultural conditions relatively constant.
The methodology here relies on synthesizing large data sets. To measure corruption, they used a 2021 national survey, analyzing the perceptions of over 39,000 citizens. Surveying a sample this large involves asking people about their direct, everyday interactions, such as whether they were asked for a bribe when trying to open a business or secure a building permit. To measure the geography, the researchers compiled 22 distinct geographical indicators into 5 sub-indices: infrastructure, location, mineral wealth, forestal resources, and climatic values.
Notice how the resulting data maps onto specific regions of high geographical relevance. The visual representations show dark and red areas indicating concentrations of high utility along the Pacific coast, the Central Bajío corridor, and various border regions. These are areas where natural and strategic assets overlap the most heavily. The Pacific coast features major shipping ports, while the Central Bajío corridor is a massive hub for manufacturing and terrestrial logistics. The central question the researchers set out to answer is whether these specific, high-value geographical coordinates correspond directly with the citizens' reports of local corruption.
Section 4. The surprising reality.
When the researchers ran the numbers, comparing the impact of natural versus strategic utility, they found that a municipality's strategic dimension is associated with a 6.72 percentage point increase in perceived corruption. Merely being located in a strategic position measurably increases the likelihood that a local government will be captured by external networks. In statistical terms, a shift of nearly 7 percentage points across hundreds of municipalities is substantial. It translates to millions of daily administrative interactions being compromised. It means that simply by virtue of existing on a trade route or an international border, a local government faces a mathematically higher baseline of pressure from actors looking to extract rent.
When comparing the two types of utility, strategic positioning strongly increases corruption, while general natural resources show a null or even slightly negative overall effect. This challenges the traditional resource curse literature, which often assumes that having abundant natural resources automatically leads to sweeping local corruption. The data suggests that at the municipal level, having a forest or general farmland doesn't necessarily doom a local government to capture. The logistics of extracting and monetizing those general resources might be too complex or localized to attract the same level of organized systemic corruption that a major highway or shipping port attracts.
However, the researchers unpack this natural utility finding to add some needed nuance. Within natural resources, specific mineral abundance, like gold, silver, and copper, does indeed increase corruption capture. But another variable stands out: climatic scarcity. The data indicates that municipalities with worse weather, meaning more droughts, higher altitudes, and extreme conditions, correlate with higher perceived corruption. This makes logical sense when you examine the mechanisms of municipal funding. When a region experiences severe drought, federal disaster relief funds and agricultural subsidies flood into the local government. Simultaneously, the local population is focused on economic survival, leading to less civic oversight. This influx of cash, combined with lowered transparency, creates an ideal environment for municipal capture.
Section 5. Redrawing anti-corruption strategies. Understanding this geographical shadow changes how we should approach the problem. The main takeaways require a shift in local governance. First, corruption isn't just about individual behavior. It's a structural issue tied to the land itself. The physical map creates a high strategic utility that financially compensates predatory organizations for the inherent risks of capturing a government. Because of this, blanket one-size-fits-all policies often fail. Transparency systems must be tailored to specific geographical incentives. Policies need to focus concentrated regulatory attention and auditing resources on highly strategic locations, recognizing that a municipality with a major port requires a vastly different oversight framework than an inland farming town.
We have seen that the geography of a municipality is an overlooked yet powerful force shaping local governance. It acts as an invisible hand, guiding the incentives, the pressures, and the vulnerabilities of local institutions. By shifting our perspective from the individuals holding office to the literal ground they govern, we gain a much clearer understanding of why certain areas struggle. So, I leave you with this final thought to consider. Knowing that certain locations are structurally more vulnerable due to their physical and strategic assets, how can we design policies to protect these highly strategic local institutions from predatory capture before they're compromised? Thank you for exploring this research with us today.